How do you lose billions of dollars making horrible movies for DC and get to do it all over again at Netflix?
Real quick, make sure to like and subscribe, y'all. I gotta pay these lawyer fees for my child fight club case. Support the fam.
Rebel Moon came out and I knew what this movie was going to be, but stupidly was hoping that something might change. That something being the main problem Snyder has with all his films. You see, everyone knows that Snyder's movies aren't good. They aren't terrible exactly, but they are lacking. They have these huge moments, pretty visuals, but feel utterly lifeless. Why is that? What does Snyder do differently that makes his films so much worse? We have huge directors with distinct styles like him, but their movies don't suck. Denis Villeneuve, Ari Aster, and Sam Raimi all have such a pronounced style that makes people know who directed it before the credits roll. We can do the same with Snyder, but he doesn't have a core trait of filmmaking. Many people have intelligently pointed out his knack for cinematography and suggest that he chose that path instead. However, I want to discuss the kinks in the road he has paved, the many movies he has made, and the one problem that ruins them all. First, I want to talk about what's on top of my mind, and that being Rebel Moon, the most Snyder thing to date, which means a lot of slow-mo, insanely crude dialogue, and a mile-wide cast of characters that are an inch deep. The main character is supposed to be a Luke Skywalker ripoff, as this movie is intended to be a Star Wars film, and it's apparent. The hot swords, which resemble lightsabers, the seedy bar full of alien bounty hunters, and oh my god, the space Nazis. The Empire ripoff is so obviously Snyder showing the audience, look guys, I get it, it's about fascism. The man is allergic to subtlety. That said, the designs are strange. All the soldiers have a fade, and the SS uniform, weird. Now I want to get into spoilers in order to really dig into what made this movie such a nothing fest. So if you haven't watched it, be warned. This movie starts out with our main character tilling the soil while the rest of the village people congregate in celebration of harvest. The premise sounds okay, but when watching, you're waiting for someone to have a personality. I mean, all of the characters are very simple farmers with the exact same temperaments. They are an idea of what a farmer is, and thus is it incredibly hard to get the audience to connect with them. This becomes a problem within a few scenes, because surprise, surprise, when the big bad evil comes into town, they ask for a tour, and then ask for their surplus grain to feed their soldiers. The town leader says no, and the town idiot says, we might be able to. This infuriates the space Nazi as he kills the town leader. Big slow-mo shot, huge outpour of crime from the cast, and I expect Snyder sitting there, waiting for me to feel something. But how could I? We spent all of our time with incredibly directional and crude dialogue, constantly telling us who people are and not showing us much about them. I couldn't even tell you a single thing about this old dude, and now I'm supposed to sit through this whole long scene. It gets even worse when the goody two-shoes town girl is introduced. We see her meet the overly evil soldiers, who again are a very simple idea of a bad soldier, as they harass her and make really weird rapey comments. This culminates after they actually try to do just that at night, and our main character saves the day. Gratuitous slow-mo shots, overly done acts of evil, and dialogue that lays it on so thick you can barely think. I mean, everything the characters say is just more setup and exposition. I can't wonder about them. I can't form an opinion. There's no substance there for me to engage with. This cycle repeats itself all throughout the film until it just ends. And sure, there are cool scenes, interesting costumes, and nice visuals. However, that's not a story. That's not all a film is. I can't tell you a single name. Remember what any of the heroes like or dislike? I mean, nothing. Say what you want about other bad movies, but I've never walked away from a film feeling so empty and being so confused they don't remember who the main villain's name is. A movie posturing as an anti-imperialist, anti-fascist art piece with no real complexity in its main adversary or protagonist, especially considering the MC is a ripoff of Gamora and takes away all of the care that Gunn put into her. What happens when someone as rudimentary as Zack Snyder tackles on something as sensitive and important like an abuse story? For those who've had the fortune in life to never have seen Sucker Punch, I apologize. Alas, I must talk about this film to really get at the core of the Snyder curse. Sucker Punch tells the story of a young girl fighting against her abusive father and later lobotomy. It uses her escapist fantasies to illustrate obstacles, abusers, and oftentimes emotions. It sounds interesting to anyone who hasn't seen it. However, when you watch it, the feeling of disappointment is familiar. The plot starts unraveling when you realize the main character, who dresses like a schoolgirl, is actually 20 years old. It further deteriorates after she tries to kill her abusive father, who is comically evil and ugly, and she gets sent to a psych ward. It's in this psych ward that she is set to get lobotomized. But right before that happens, we go into dreamland, where the fantasy begins, in a burlesque show of all things, strippers fancied up. You see where I'm going with this. You have some old man writing a female empowerment story, and the first thing the fantasy shows is actresses in costumes like this. Now, that's not to say that a woman can't imagine herself like this, but Zack Snyder doing this, imagining this dream world, has a bad look to it. It reminds me a lot of the problems that the creator of Wonder Woman had, a self-proclaimed feminist who used this title as a way to write barely disguised fetish comics and womanize his colleagues. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but these costumes are insane for this plot and this director. You can see where I'm getting a little irritated here. All of these are interesting pieces being lazily put together before a movie so leftly bad it got beat out by Diary of a Wimpy Kid 2. I learned that from this hilarious video which summarizes everything wrong with Snyder.
So, in the case of 300, effectively what he did was he took a sort of, a political and interesting cartoon strip, and all he saw was the costumes. It's great. Look, it's the Battle of Thermopylae. We're going to send them all in dressed wearing rubber pants, and they're going to fight with people, the village people. So it's like costume. It's a costume drama. There is a sort of source which has got a whole bunch of stuff in it, but we're not interested in that. We're interested in them walking around in rubber pants. Then we get along to Watchmen, which, Watchmen, many people really, really love as a graphic novel. I mean, even I read Watchmen. That's how popular it was. And Zack Snyder comes along, and many other people were on to do it, and Terry Gilliam was going to do it at one point, but it finally falls to Zack Snyder, who the only thing he sees is the costumes. Like, yeah, it's a bunch of people in rubber, lots of people dressed in rubber, that's fine. He is the living embodiment of a person who cannot see beyond the surface of anything whatsoever.
What I want to add on to that is how much worse it is that he felt the need to tell this story. As a man who has never been through this, I can tell you, I wouldn't do too much better than this, because I have nothing to say. Snyder has nothing to say. He should have consulted with someone, talked with groups, or do anything to achieve a unique story that had an impactful message. What could the story have been if it didn't put the audience to sleep? What could it teach us way back then that we know now? How many men would be better off learning of a real and genuine story like this, told from survivors who actually have a point to make? No, all that is gone. It's washed away in a cheap CGI reel with a lot of skimpy costumes. Instead of a profound story like Zack probably imagined he'd be telling, it's simply good intentions and a decent PS2 graphics. Unsurprisingly, in another film with slightly better graphics and a much easier story to tell, Snyder still misses the point. You knew it was coming. I've shat on this film before. I'm not afraid to do it again. Snyder Bros have been defending this movie since the day it appeared, and I honestly can't blame you. It's definitely the most appealing of all Snyder's more modern films, but I'm sorry, it can't escape the Snyder curse. In Man of Steel, we are treated to not only an incredibly unsaturated and grayed out film, but a Clark Kent without any vibrance or warmth. Entertain this for some moments. I want to play two clips, one from a Snyder film and another from an animated film.
In that case.
How many people that you saved have you saved? Wait, never mind. Does your thing really stand for hope?
Yes, it does.
But it looks like an S.
Yes, it's meant to. It's meant to wind like a river. It comes and goes. A man I knew used to say that hope is like your car keys. Easy to lose, but if you dig around, it's usually close by.
Did you ever fight a hippo? No, that's not. Hippos are the most deadly. What's the best thing about planet Earth?
I've done what I can to make her comfortable, but I can't neutralize the kryptonite in your bodies. Not in time.
After everything we've done, you still show us kindness.
My Earth parents taught me forgiveness. Humanity has a lot to teach us.
Perhaps. Kal-El, son of Krypton, I'm proud to call you my kin. Our greatness lives on in you.
We don't have much time.
There's a way to save us both. Surely you've thought of it.
Yes. But it has to be your choice. I'll try to find a way to cure you.
But your own time is short. Do what you must.
Now, let me ask you, how do you feel after watching both? What do you imagine would happen if you met either of these guys? Which one would you trust around your family? Would ask for saving? Would be filled with excitement at the sight of them soaring through the sky? For my money, I'm taking the animated soups. The amount of character, honor, and love sewn into the fabric of this man pales in comparison to the bundle of loose threads that Snyder has thrown together to make this. Henry Cavill by no means is a bad actor. However, just like in Rebel Moon, he cannot make his character have depth when his dialogue is this.
Are you effing stupid?
It's one of your surveillance drones.
That's a $12 million piece of hardware.
It was. I know you're trying to find out where I hang my cape. You won't.
Then I'll ask the obvious question. How do we know you won't one day act against America's interests?
I grew up in Kansas, General. About as American as it gets.
If you'll entertain me one more time, I want to use one of the popular clips from Man of Steel to explain exactly why this movie puts me to sleep. Of course, I'm talking about the bar scene. In this clip, Superman defends this waitress from a cartoon bar patron, slapping her ass and making sexist comments. Clark stands up to him and quietly asks him to stop. At first, it's okay, right? Immediately the scene shows you, though, what's really going on in Snyder's mind. The customer pushes Clark, and Clark, being Superman, doesn't move, of course. The deeper meaning here being Superman strong. Then the customer, being embarrassed, dumps his drink all over Clark, with Superman just taking it, hopefully to de-escalate the scenario. Boy, was I wrong. When the guy leaves, he finds his truck mangled to bits, with a telephone pole sticking out of it. What the fuck? What about the whole staying low thing Papa Kent was talking about? What about being self-sacrificial is this? Instead, the very unique and deep message Snyder wants to say here is Superman strong. A complete caveman of a director. Compare this to a recent comic, where Clark as a child, mind you, encounters a bully on the playground, who gets irritated by his empathy and attempts to connect the dots on why this child is so mad. Hint, hint, he has an abusive father. Then the boy swings on Clark, and as Clark is watching in super speed, he thinks to what his father taught him. How real strength is not how hard you hit, but getting back up. And Clark takes the punch like a true hero, only to get back up and fight the demons this boy is facing. Unlike Snyder, there is a point the writer is making, a story of the power of kindness and how it can triumph over all, something that is so integral to Superman, but completely lost to someone as surface level as Snyder. Now, I'm sure you've seen these clips, heard these complaints, and the teardown on Snyder's Papa Kent, a man who, instead of teaching his son how to use his powers for kindness, taught him nothing but cowardice, leading him to die like this. We all rag on these moments because, while they have great visuals, that stylistic slow-mo, and hard-hitting actors, they are ultimately dull, lifeless, and more importantly, meaningless. Snyder, for some reason, hasn't given up trying. Back to Rebel Moon. There's a scene where a spider-like woman aims to kill a child and fights against the town's leader. It's a cool premise, however, it seems like Snyder again had an idea of what this would be and never ironed it out. The dialogue is no frills, just characters reciting motivations from a pitch bible. The choreography is offensively bad at times, characters often doing the "I could kill you right now, but gotta stare for dramatic effect" cliche. The thing that tied this all together for me, the reason for this video, is a clip from an interview where I watched recently where Snyder states the reason he made films to begin with was because of Star Wars.
First movie I saw that made me want to make movies was Star Wars.
Which really breaks my heart because this attempt is so lackluster and makes you wonder how he survived film school. And then he actually talks about that, how in his class, one of his many half-baked ideas was presented before the professor and he got praised for it. Surprised by that, I assumed he remembered that and kept going, starting a cycle of a man who can only produce really cool, half-baked ideas with no real development, being praised for trailers and by the oafs who get mad when you bring up political themes in films. What's even more heartbreaking is that Snyder is actually talented. In this same interview, he shows some of his early storyboarding and you can tell how much he really loves this, how much he cares about the final product of the film, and I just can't for the life of me understand why he doesn't have a partner, someone to bring the other side of film he so desperately needs. To quote this interview for the last time, I want to bring up the bit of advice he gives towards the end.
Say when someone asks me for movie making advice, is I always say that your point of view is the most important thing there is.
Your point of view is the most important thing there is, which I agree with. An artist who tries to care for everyone's point of view makes nothing noteworthy. However, if this is how you see the world, Zach, it's bleak. A grayed out world with shells of characters, only speaking to further the plot and only emoting when it is time for slow-mo. From what I can tell, he seems like a good dude. Everyone who's ever worked with him has nothing but good things to say. But I gotta wonder, if this is how you see the world, then how do you see films? I mean, if Rebel Moon is supposed to be an interpretation of Star Wars, then its only achievement is being a testament to how much of art is about the viewer. And it seems like Snyder didn't see much at all. If you can barely resonate with the film, then how can you write a compelling story based on it? Not even changing much of the wrong war, mind you, you took the aesthetics from, and having no real point other than the good guys win. With a sea of people who chant and scream watching things like, let's say, Andor, you have the minority of mostly dudes who can only see the big laser swords and magic lightning. This is not someone who needs to keep being rewarded with films. He already has a second shitty knockoff in the works over at Netflix, and man, it upsets me that other, far more talented artists don't get that kind of work. Artists who actually have something to say, rather than catering to an industry built on pure spectacle. Now, I'm an optimist, and with the recent downtick in superhero blockbusters and the like, I'd imagine the industry might go through a few changes in the coming years. A wave of new directors, new writers, and new films, replacing the dried up old ones we have today. With that, let's hope Snyder gets washed out to sea. Thanks for watching, y'all. I don't really hate Snyder, but I do really hate what he presents in the film industry. Overly confident dudes who have nothing to say, but somehow keep getting work. If you're in the minority of people who actually like Rebel Moon, please tell me what I missed, because I really want to get what y'all see in his films. Now, if you want a great film to watch that has far more depth, character, and impact, while still delivering on the spectacle, then check out Trolls 3. No, I'm not joking. With that, however, I think I've said all that I wanted to say. If I left something out, then drop it in the comments. Peace.